Hi, and welcome to the Parker J. Cole Show. I am your host, the Queen, Parker J. Thank you so much for joining me. As you can see, I have a special guest co host today. Her name is Grace. She's my new puppy. We just got her about a month ago. Now, I couldn't put her away because she likes to sleep in my arms. So she's with me right now. I hope you don't mind. But I also have another guest co host. Her name is Lynn Donovan. She's an author, playwright, and speaker. And we're going to be discussing the topic of are narcissists irredeemable? And we're going to delve into this more on a general surface level. We're not psychologists or psychiatrists, but just through research and talking to people and listening to stories that others have told us, we're going to see if narcissists are irredeemable. And so, Lynn, thank you so much for being with me today on the show.
Well, and as you can see, I have a co-host also. This is Nellie. She is our oldest dachshund. We have 5 dachshunds actually. And this is the mother of all of our dachshunds. So Nellie, say hello to the people.
The thing about Nellie, right? I think all dogs are narcissistic in some way. And dear viewer and listener, the thing about Nellie is that she's very empathic. I was at Lynn's house a couple years ago and I was got angry at something that had happened. And Nellie kept looking at me. Then all of a sudden she jumped on my face and put her body and was suffocating me. And I said, Nellie, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And Lynn's laughing her head off. And I'm like, Nellie, please get off me. But she wouldn't get off me because she wanted to make sure I was doing okay. So what I had to do was, guess what? I had to calm down. I couldn't do anything but calm down. So I calmed down because I couldn't breathe, which will help you calm down when you think about it. And Nellie slowly got off me and I said, I'm fine, Nellie. I'm fine. I'm fine. And Lynn's just laughing her head off. You have to remember, she's laughing her head off. And so Nellie looks at me and I started to get animated again, talking about the situation. Then she looked at me like, do you need some more? And I'm like, no, Nellie, I don't need any more. But dogs are not narcissists like some people are. Dogs are very empathic, they're very sympathetic, they're able to pick up moods, they're able to really connect with you in a way that narcissists can't. So I want to talk about just some general topics related to narcissism. Before I do that, go ahead and just tell the viewers a little bit about yourself so they know who they're talking to.
Well, like Parker said, I am an author. I have published about 125 books on Amazon. I'm an indie author, which means I publish them all myself. I haven't gone through a publisher yet, but it could be in my future. Who knows? From my mouth to God's ear, kind of a thing.
Amen.
Um, and I did write a play and I did produce it, and it was out for the public a couple of years ago. And Parker came and did a podcast during that time too. That was a lot of fun. As you can tell, Parker and I are really, really good friends. We're not just acquaintances on the internet. We actually spent the night together in a hotel, and we were still friends when we got drowned and killed each other.
I've been at her house. She hasn't been in my house yet, but I've been to her house, so we're talking.
Yeah.
One of these days, I look forward to that.
We've survived a B movie together, which are
Yes.
not fun to watch a B movie with.
I talk in movies, guys. I talk.
But we are really, really good friends, guys. And and Parker and I are the kind of friends that we can trust each other and we bounce ideas off of each other. We bounce research off of each other. There's things
Yes.
Parker knows that I don't feel like researching, so I'll just call her and go, tell me what you know about this.
Yeah.
And 5 hours later, we'll hang up the phone.
Yeah.
Parker loves to delve into research. She goes down rabbit holes. I don't like rabbit holes. I like to go find what I want to find and get back to my writing. So we both have, shall we say, our talents.
Yes. We both have a skill set that we play off of each other because I'm a city girl and Lynn grew up in not being a city girl. So when I was working on historicals, I didn't have any information about like horses or barns. And so I would gloss over them in some of my earlier works. And then a couple years ago, I think maybe 3 years ago,
3 years ago.
We set up a place where I went to a horse. Was it a horse ranch or a horse care ranch?
Yeah,
Something
the
like that.
equestrian center. Yeah.
Yeah, we went there.
They keep horses and they also do like they teach people how to ride horses and they board them and stuff like that. Yeah.
And I called myself going to ride a horse. I was so determined to do that. And Liz said, I don't think you're going to be able to ride a horse. I said, no, I want to ride a horse. So I get there, dear viewer and dear listener, and I see the horse and I am terrified because the horse is very tall. And it looked at me and just this shiver of fear went through my body. And I said, I can't do this. And so Lynn said, I think you should just touch the horse. So I touched the horse's nose. And in the books, they always
baby
say,
carrots for you to feed them.
and carrots. And in the books, they always say the horse's nose felt like velvet. And it really did. And it was very gentle. It took the carrot from my hand, but it was kind of odd because it nipped my hand a little bit. And then I realized
It did, Parker.
well, not nip hard, but I could feel his teeth. I mean, I could feel his teeth on my palm.
Okay.
And I realized how horses had different personalities because one horse was extremely friendly and was just nudging at me. The other horse looked as if I am done with humans. It was looking off to the side, didn't want to be bothered. This diary
Day.
it was. I remember the scents, the smell of hay and horse. I saw the men with long sleeve shirts in the barn. And I was like, but on all the romance covers, all the cowboys don't have shirts on. And she said, what cowboy does that? Well, why would you not have a shirt on while you're working in the sun all day? It doesn't make any sense. And so that was the reality coming face to face with fiction and romance. But
Yeah, and that's what we call boots on the ground research.
yeah. But we had a great time. We had a great time. So when you're looking at me and Lynn, we do have a really good tight friendship. And so when I asked her about doing this particular topic, she had been researching it anyway and delving into it because this is not the typical type of research that she does. But she was doing it for a particular purpose, which we'll go into. But it made me wonder, are narcissists irredeemable? Because we all have heard stories of some sort where a person who is narcissistic, most people just call them evil. But does that mean they're irredeemable? So that's a question we're going to be discussing today as we kind of take just a general overview of what a narcissist is, what are signs of narcissism, what are some things that narcissists hate, and then we're going to end our show with an example of someone who may be reformed. We'll talk about that in our show. So let's go ahead and get started, Lynn, because I know our viewers and listeners want to delve into the topic. What do we mean when we say someone is narcissistic?
Well, and like you say, the reason that I started looking into this was simply because of my writing. And, you know, I really want my characters to be realistic. I don't want them to be one dimensional. And I looked at the 5 love languages and I looked at men are from Mars, women are from Venus. And that really wasn't, I mean, it was giving me what I needed for my hero, but it wasn't giving me what I needed for my antagonist. And so I started looking into narcissism because I thought, well, you know, I want my antagonist to be somebody that my readers are not going to like. And you're not going to like a narcissist, you know, because they're very difficult. There's, should we talk about the types of narcissists? Or
Well, before we get into that, let me ask you this. Is a narcissist the same as someone who is selfish? Do they overlap? How do we distinguish between the two?
well, a narcissist is going to be selfish, but a selfish person is not necessarily a narcissist.
Okay.
A narcissist is actually defined as someone who lacks empathy. I understand there's been studies on their brain patterning and the area of the brain that is where your empathy is. Like that part of the brain was black, like it just didn't function, which is interesting. They typically are very entitled. They expect special treatment. They are very grandiose, and they're also very superficial. They don't regulate emotions, kind of ever. And let me preface that with they can regulate their emotions if they're trying to get something from you, and so that's why they're being, they call it love bombing.
Oh,
But when the love bombing isn't needed to get what they want, then they cannot regulate their emotions. And then they're also super hypersensitive to criticism. And so it takes those traits. And again, we're not psychologists, but there is something called a narcissistic personality disorder that doctors can determine, but I understand only 3% of the population actually are the NPD. So I think what we deal with on a day-to-day basis with people that are difficult is aspects of narcissism, and I think it's just a matter of how much of their personality is consumed by that behavior and how much is not. And that would make the difference in someone who is selfish or obnoxious or difficult to be around, as opposed to someone who's actually a narcissist.
let's delve into that for a moment because you did say that 3% of the population has been diagnosed with NPD, which is narcissistic personality disorder. Would you say that most of us can have narcissistic tendencies? And is that a precursor to being someone who is eventually diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder?
I honestly can't answer that question.
Mhm.
Again, we're not psychologists,
But if we just look at it, when you think about it though, as narcissists, and we do have narcissistic tendencies. Sometimes it really is all about me. Me and Lynn
That's
joke.
true, partner. It is all about you.
Me and Lynn joke sometimes.
See,
Say, "It's really about you." Right? It really is all about me. It has nothing to do with you at all. But I think in some senses, it's okay to be selfish with
Oh,
your time, selfish with the things you want to do. We just have to curb those
absolutely.
more negative, selfish tendencies. But narcissism is completely different. Now, let's talk about the different types of narcissists that you were able to research about.
Yeah. There's 5 different types. Now they can blend and have a couple of different things of this personality, but basically if you divide them all up into 5 sections, they are the grandiose, which is the overt narcissist, the vulnerable, which is the covert narcissist, the malignant narcissist, that's the really bad kind, the neglectful narcissist, and that's the person who, for example, they might completely ignore their own children, but they would dedicate all their time to children in Africa and raising money and taking pilgrimages over there to help these children, and yet their own children are at home, doing their own homework by themselves because mom and dad aren't there. So that's your neglectful. It's also called the communal because they're really into the community, and getting that kind of accolades from the community. And then you have the self-righteous narcissist, and that's the person who they're right and everybody else is wrong, no matter what.
So let's talk about you gave us the various examples of different types of narcissists. When we encounter them, are there tells that these people give that we can maybe be on guard for that we can pick up on?
I mean, you know how everybody always talks about your gut feelings? When you're around a narcissist, now initially when they're trying to reel you in, you're just going to be they call it love bombing. They just love bomb you. But the cue in your heart is, like it's too much too soon. um, there's you just get that weird feeling that, yeah, this is really, really nice, but something's wrong and I don't know what it is. I can't quite put my finger on it. So it's that internal message, your body reacts. And we have a tendency to ignore that and, tell ourselves that we're just being, too judgmental or whatever. But then as time goes by, as the narcissist gets more familiar with you and they basically get from you what they want and you're now part of their world, then you'll start seeing that love bombing completely stops, totally stops. And then you start getting, the criticism from them and you can't do anything right. And just it's very, very miserable the way they will treat you. But then every so often they'll be nice. And so you kind of live for those moments when they're nice to you. And you have a tendency to be forgetful of these other times when they make you feel terrible. So yeah, it's hard not to know that you're with a narcissist because they are so obvious.
And they probably think that they're not as obvious as they come off. So what do you think keeps people in relationships with narcissists, particularly in romantic relationships, not necessarily familial relationships like with a parent or even a sister or brother? What keeps people in, from what you've researched over the years, what keeps them in relationships with a narcissist?
It's basically well, it depends on your situation. I mean, if it's your husband, um, you could be up against your religion, that you don't believe in divorce. It may be that you're thinking, well, gosh, I've made my bed, now I've got to lie in it. Um, this is my husband. I can't walk away from this. I've got to figure, and you also blame yourself. You have a tendency to think, well, what is it that I'm doing? What can I do to make this better that he'll stop treating me this way? Or it may be the husband that's with a wife who's a narcissist and they're looking for um, ways to make it right. If it's a boss, maybe you put up with his grandiose behavior because you need the job. You absolutely cannot afford to quit. You've got a mortgage, you've got kids, you've got whatever. And especially if it's a family member, you know, it's very, very hard to divorce your mother or divorce your father or divorce your brother or sister or even a cousin because you're going to have family gatherings. So, do you just completely stop going to the family gatherings? Do you stop bringing your own children so that they never know their grandparents? I mean, it's a huge issue. And so, you've got to honestly, it takes going to a therapist and getting the thinking down right where you can learn ways to accept their behavior but not get sucked into it. There's a thing called gray rocking, and that's where you basically state the facts, stick with the facts, but you don't let them get you into an argument. So there's techniques for dealing with the narcissist and kind of protecting your own heart. But it's a challenge. It's a real challenge.
Now when you were doing your research, you were doing this because you were working on something you were writing and you wanted to flesh out the character who's your antagonist. And so I wanted to discuss what are the skill sets that a narcissist has that a writer or someone in our audience listening or watching this podcast they can use to help create a very well fleshed out antagonist like a narcissist.
Yeah, basically narcissists have a pretty good idea of what they want. They 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 actually feel like they don't measure up, but they make up for it by pretending to be super wonderful. So there's this charismatic um presentation of themselves, and that's a skill set. They're great salesmen. Um, they they can convince, what is it? They can sell refrigerators to Eskimos. They can just really, really read a room and know what what's going to work with different people as far as how to approach them, how to impress them, how to get something out of them, like if they're wanting to sell them a car. Car salesmen are wonderful at being narcissists, seriously, because they can read you and get what's important to you and then emphasize those things. So that's part of what shall we say is a skill set that narcissists not depict. What's the word?
Well, they exhibit that skill set.
Yeah, that they exhibit that skill, exactly.
So would you say that a narcissist is highly observant then?
I would definitely say they're very observant. And like I said, they can totally read a room. They know who they can impress and who they don't even need to waste their time on. Because some people just instantly knows, that's, and they're like, I'm not fooled by you. So they will completely ignore that person. As far as you ever seen a cat that just completely ignores you? Or a dog? Have you ever had your dog just like,
Yeah. Yes, I do.
They know how to do that.
Hey, so go ahead and tell us what are some of the things that narcissists hate? Because that's also good for character development as well.
True, absolutely. In my studies, there were 8 things that they list as what narcissists absolutely hate, and that is being held accountable for their actions. So if you develop a scene where you've got that going on, then you've got a great scene. When someone else steals the spotlight from them, they hate that. Not having access to someone. So in modern times, if a narcissist texts you, they want you to answer right away. And if you don't, they get mad at you. They're calling, they're texting multiple times, so just right then, right there. But if you text them, they're going to call you back or text you back whenever they feel like it. So there's that. Now, we write historical Western, so we don't have cell phones back there. So I'm thinking, I'm going to send a telegram and you better answer the minute we get it. Yeah. Right now. Let's see. When you don't need their financial support. Don't like that. Yeah, because then you don't need them. I read of a lot of situations where the narcissist was the breadwinner, and a lot of them was the men with the women, but there's also women narcissists with men.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, they will be, because they're so charismatic, they will be the successful breadwinner, and they basically keep that partner in a situation where they, either they're a stay-home dad or it's a stay-home mom, and they don't have a job. So, when you don't have a job and the other person's a breadwinner, you're trapped.
Yeah.
And they really like that. But if you get to a point where you don't need their financial support, then they're going to really, really hate that. When you want to spend time with a big group of friends, they don't like that because it's kind of like that spotlight thing. Your attention isn't solely on them. Your attention's on all these other people. And they're kind of going to be very difficult to be around at that point in time and kind of make shall we say, a butt of themselves,
Yeah.
When you want to become independent from them, they're going to fight that tooth and nail. Being confronted with the truth about themselves, that's a very difficult situation for them to deal with. And also criticism of any kind. They are going to bounce that back off of you. One of the interesting thing about narcissists is they typically will tell on themselves by accusing their partner or you or whatever of something that you're not doing.
But they are.
But that's an indication that they're doing it.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say they tell on themselves.
It's not me stealing the money. It's you. It's not me having an affair. It's you. Or they're watching you because they want to make sure that you don't find out the secret. And the secret is that narcissists are extremely insecure. And one of the reasons why they don't like criticism, for myself, I have to look at myself and self evaluate. Lynn looks at herself and she has to self evaluate. And we may see our flaws and we say, you know what? I have to have a plan of action to stop this behavior, this bad habit, this negative self talk, whatever it may be that you consider a flaw about yourself. But a narcissist is unwilling to take that self reflection. And so, if you ever wonder if you are a narcissist, if you can look at yourself and be okay with your flaws and try to correct them, I don't think you are a narcissist. I don't think you are. But like we said, we're not psychiatrists. We're actually coming at it from people that we've known over the years, as well as writers who want to develop our characters. And I'm pretty sure our viewers and listeners listening and viewing this podcast, they can probably think of real life examples of narcissists. And we'd love to hear about it. So go ahead and leave a comment in the comment section below. Share your stories because I'm pretty sure you have some. Now, I want to talk briefly about narcissists who are parents because parent narcissists who are parents and children of narcissists, they have a very difficult time breaking the hold that their parent has. So just based off what you have researched over the time you've been looking into this topic, what are some coping mechanisms or some ways the child of a narcissist can get some help or free themselves from that rather toxic relationship?
Um, a child of a narcissistic parent is in their most vulnerable time of their life when they're learning who they are, what they are, why they are. Um, Everything is normal to them, no matter how bizarre it is. And because the way you grow up is what you think is normal. When I was a little girl, I couldn't see, and nobody knew I couldn't see. I was very, very nearsighted. Um, I didn't know you could see the leaves in the trees, and I sure didn't know you could see snowflakes. They just looked like big blobs.
Mhm.
And in 3rd grade, they discovered that I couldn't see, and they got me glasses. And when they got me glasses, I spent the whole day going like this because I just couldn't believe you could see leaves. But up until then, that was normal to me, and I thought everybody saw that way. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when you have a narcissistic parent, you grow up not like you don't have a safe place. You don't have a safe person because those people are focused on themselves only, and your whole worth is centered in how it makes them look. And that's how you grow up, and you learn to keep them happy, because when you keep them happy, then they're not coming at you and you're not getting into trouble and that kind of stuff. So that's why it's so hard to grow up being a narcissistic child or a child of a narcissist. Um, and honestly, I mean, again, we're not therapists. I think it takes therapy. I think it takes someone who has studied this to come to you and say, what you think is normal is not normal.
Yeah.
What you think is your fault is not your fault. You were robbed of a childhood. You were robbed of a safe place, and we're going to work with you, and we're going to do what's called a narrative. We're going to change your narrative. We're going to retrain your brain to react differently from how it reacts now. And it's in role playing, journaling. There's a lot of work that's involved to retrain the brain that has grown up. I don't know, whatever the word is. Grew up.
Matured.
I'm a writer. All my words are my computer, not my mouth. But a child that grew up with a narcissistic parent, they just learned everything kind of wrong. So it takes that really expert trauma type therapist to teach that person, because then you become an adult, um, how to react the way a shall we say, normal person would react. A confident person, you literally have to learn confidence. You have to learn not to be a pleaser. You have to learn all these things because you learned it the other way, always taking care of that parent and making sure that parent had what they needed. So it's a tough one.
Yeah.
I one of the number one rules in writing is don't kill the family dog. And so honestly, children, in a way you could write that into your stories, but I would skim over it because
Yeah.
you don't our readers like the happy ever after, and they really don't want those hard
I
issues.
think it's because human nature being what it is, sometimes it has very ugly parts to it. And it brings me to my question, which is the title of this particular show is, are narcissists irredeemable? What do you think?
Well, Parker, you and all your listeners know that I am a Christian. And first and foremost, I think God can do anything he wants to do. But I think it would take an act of God to turn a narcissist around. In the research that I have done, the people that I've looked at, it's therapists that are talking about all of this and stuff. They all say that it is possible for a narcissist to, shall we say, come around, but they have to be the one wanting it. They have to be willing to work very, very hard to obtain it. And it takes years and years of therapy to rewire their brains so that they don't act that way. They literally have to learn how to fake empathy and stuff like that. And so it's really, really hard. And so, and it's not like if you have a best, not, let's not say best, but a friend who you figure out is a narcissist, you're like, gosh, that's why she's so hard to get along with. It's not like you can go and sit down and talk it out because what's the number one thing narcissists don't like is being
Criticism and being accountable. Yeah.
being having those things brought out. So that's what's so frustrating about it. It's like, yes, they're redeemable. Of course, they're redeemable. Anybody is redeemable, I believe, with God's help.
Yeah.
Without God's help, I don't think so.
It's interesting you mentioned that because I want to share as we get ready to close for this edition of the Parker J. Cole Show. There were two instances of people who were narcissists or had some kind of personality disorder. The first one was a young woman, and she was saying that she was trying not to be a narcissist. One of her biggest egregiousness was she was able to swindle a man out of $150,000 during COVID. And she was taking her story to TikTok because she was trying not to be a narcissist, so she said. But one of the people who was evaluating her content said it's not real because a narcissist loves the attention. So even though she is revealing these horrible acts that she did to someone, the attention itself is feeding the narcissistic tendencies inside of her. So that's one example. And he said, if she's really sincere, why is she looking so dead? And this was a man who had obviously grew up with narcissistic people in his life. So that's one example, dear viewer and dear listener. The other example is a Christian apologist by the name of David Wood. And he was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder, and he's also a psychopath. He almost killed someone, he was in jail, and he actually talks about his journey into being a Christian because he started off as an atheist, had a difficult life. I think he tried to kill his mom or something like that. I cannot remember all the details. It's online, so you can go ahead and look it up. He also has a YouTube channel, and he debates atheists, and he also debates Muslims. And he's a Christian apologist, and he became a Christian when he was in jail. And he and this gentleman used to talk all the time about Christianity, and he wanted to beat the guy at his stuff. So he kept learning about the Bible to beat him. So he wasn't learning about the Bible because he was really interested. He just wanted to beat the guy. And eventually he ended up examining Islam and Christianity. He became a Christian. And one of the people he was studying Islam with also became a Christian a few years later. So he's a very interesting story. So when we say our narcissists irredeemable, the question is, do they want to be redeemed? And that essentially comes down to a personal choice. I don't think anyone is too dark for the heart of God to reach them. I don't think that is. But when you are quote unquote wired a certain way, because you mentioned when we were talking about it, that they have done scans of people who have NPD, and the part that has empathy is black. There's no activity, there's no electricity, the lights are not on. And so, how can you turn on a light when the light bulb is busted? That doesn't mean God can't turn it on. Again, where we see in impossibility, God sees an opportunity to show up and to show out. So we just love to explore this. I know I hope we haven't triggered anyone, because I know how some people can be triggered by some of these topics, because some people have lived with narcissists in some manner. They've dealt with it. I love the example you gave of someone who's your boss who may be a narcissist, because that's a difficult thing to be in, because that's tied to your livelihood, take care of your family and yourself and your needs. And so, what do you think, dear viewer? Can a narcissist be redeemed? Go ahead and share your comments in the comment below. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Lynn, thank you so much for being with me today, just tackling this topic. And I know we'll be back, and we'll be back real soon.
Thank you, Parker. I always enjoy being online with you. So, and you need to come see me sometime.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. So, dear viewer, thank you so much for joining me for this edition of the Parker J. Cole Show. You have a wonderful, absolutely glorious, blessed day. And God bless.